Alright, so since Royal High Twitter loved my last video so much, I thought we'd go ahead and read some more hate comments about MonsterVerze and why, in my opinion, they're just so silly. Now, starting off with this first comment that you can see on your screen right now, it reads, "Who is this gorgeous, beautiful queen?" Aww. Thank you. But seriously, we're going to get into some comments about people talking about MonsterVerze, more specifically Royal High Twitter users, which you could say, Pommy, well, how do you know that these people are Royal High Twitter users? Like, how would you know? Are you just assuming that? No. 9 times out of 10, these users will have Royal High Influencer, 300 subscribers on YouTube, subscribe for more content, like in their like expression, which I understand, okay? You want to be an influencer, you want to post stuff, cool, awesome. I don't have any issue with that. I think that's cool. But when you're like on your YouTube channel, you're like, oh my god, guys, welcome back to another video. We have sparkle, 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 Royal High. And then you're on Twitter calling people slurs and like the most degenerate things known to man. It's like, babe, pick a personality because this ain't adding up, okay? Something is amiss here. But anyways, I do want to clarify that the comments that I have here obviously don't have derogatory words in them, so please keep that in mind. And obviously, I didn't put the nastiest stuff in this video because who needs to see that? At the end of the day, we have enough negativity, so... This first comment, which also, I have the usernames muted for a reason, or blurred for a reason. Although people can say nasty things, I don't think that means they then in turn deserve to be, you know, treated nastily by other people. That just creates a cycle of toxicity constantly, so that's why the usernames are blurred. Now this one reads, outside of the glitches, MonsterVerze is an unfinished walking simulator, and there's literally nothing to do. There are misspelled or unfinished things just lying around. Your only options are really to dress up and take pictures. It feels like a closed alpha build, which... I'm gonna be honest, I can understand this person's frustration, and I think this is one of the more tame comments, but again, this is something I mentioned in my previous video, and I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, but people genuinely have a fundamental misunderstanding of what beta means, and 9 times out of 10, you would have to pay to be part of a beta and to test a game and to have like first-hand access to the game. And so the fact that this game is a free and open beta for everybody to enjoy, I think would obviously raise some negative feedback from the community, because some people just don't understand what beta means, right? And this person says they understand that there's some glitches and stuff like that, but then go ahead to just point out glitches, right? Because the screenshots here are people missing legs or issues with the bodies, or there's issues with, spelling, which in my opinion, I would assume is probably a glitch in like the back end. Like it's obviously an issue that occurred, right? But it's just like, it's so silly to me for them to be posting pictures of stuff and saying, oh my God, like this is terrible. Like it's an unfinished game. Yeah. That's what beta means. It's unfinished. And people get so mad when people point that out, but that's the truth. The game is in development, and people expect the game to be like this spotless, like pristine, super amazing, fantastic game, when they forget that this is a small indie development group. This is not like some massive corporation. This is not some massive company. And at the end of the day, yes, Royal High started out as a smaller game as well. However, Royal High is now a massive game with a ton of people that work on it, okay? For a game to, again, have a toy line in one of the biggest retailers in the entire world, they're obviously a pretty big company, and there's a lot of people involved with that. And so I think it's really unfair to compare two different games that have two very different amounts of resources available to them, both financially and just, people who can work for them. I think it's really unfair to compare the two, because at the end of the day, MonsterVerze does not have access to the same kind of resources, Roblox connections, developer connections, or even monetary connections that Royal High does. So I think it's really unfair for some people, not this person, but for some people to be comparing the games so closely and saying, oh, well, Royal High could put out a game like this and it's fine, but these guys can't. Well, these guys are significantly younger, I would assume, first of all. And second of all, these individuals don't have a whole massive company behind them, right? Royal High didn't at the beginning too, but that's why Royal High was literally at the beginning copied off of aspects of Winx Club, right? And that's why Royal High used to not have a massive map. They didn't have a ton of features. Those features were slowly added over time. And so for people to sit here and say, well, MonsterVerze doesn't have this right away, and so they're bad. They're like a walking simulator. Well, Royal High didn't have all their features at the beginning either, right? And I think just people are so quick to attack games that are similar to their favorite game, which I understand. You don't want your favorite game to be swept under the rug or forgotten about, but attacking another game is not the way to attract people to playing the game that you enjoy so much. It makes your community look so toxic. Now this next one, which this one was also pretty funny actually. It reads, a tiny bug fixed within a day versus an entire game's release. Y'all need to be serious, OMG. Campus 3 released the same amount of content in MonsterVerze in a single day without bugs, with more actually. Don't be afraid to turn the comment section on. And then they have like this wheel, which I'm gonna be honest, this is actually really funny. Excuses wheel. The game's in beta. It broke because there's too many players. It's inspired, not copied. Your post is satire. You're a troll. This game was made by a small indie dev team. Royal High didn't invent XYZ. Which I have to say, those are all things that I've said. It's like, kind of funny, I'm gonna be honest. But genuinely, this is where I feel like the silliness of it is, right? These are all valid excuses. I think it's a difference to like put out a fake excuse and be like, oh, well, you know, there was bugs because, well, you were playing the game wrong. That wouldn't be a valid excuse, right? However, these, in my opinion, are all valid excuses for the game. And specifically, again, this is what I was talking about. Campus 3, okay, it was released. The same amount of content as MonsterVerze in a single day. Okay, how many people were working on that? How many developers are working on that? How many developers who their full-time job is who solely work on Roblox worked on that? Because it's different for somebody who has a full-time job or someone who's in school or someone who's like doing other things on the side, right? Who does this as a passion project and who does their best to, you know, make something that they really wanted. And if you guys watch the Q&A section, they discussed how, you know, it's more of a passion project for them. And it's something that Petroni, I believe, you know, in her, one of her years in college, she thought of this idea and now they've been developing it, etc. Right? And I think it's really undermines the size difference in the teams and the resource difference between the two, right? Obviously, Royal High didn't start out having a massive dev team and having, you know, managers and all that, right? No game starts out like that. Games usually start up and they're built from the ground up, and I'm not taking that away from Royal High. I think Royal High obviously had to put in a lot of effort to build their game up, to build their development team, etc., right? However, MonsterVerze is a smaller game, and it's made by people who aren't as notable as Barbie, and that's not me being hateful, but that is the truth. Barbie on Roblox is a very well-known developer. She's, you know, known in the community. You can say, call me Bob, and everybody knows who you're talking about, right? However, this game is new, and these developers, although they aren't new to Roblox development, they're newer to this sort of space. I think it's incredibly unfair to compare them to Royal High, which is a massive multi-million-dollar game, when this is a small indie development team. And that's something I emphasize because people don't understand. That's like saying that, you know, oh, well, I don't know. You know, you're a singer and you're singing on the side of the street. And people are like, well, how come you weren't singing on a giant stage? Well, you're not Taylor Swift. You don't have like a whole, you know, entourage of people who can help you. You don't have managers. You don't have people facilitating your tours and stuff like that. It's just, it seems to really come from a perspective where people lack the understanding of the size difference and just the resource difference between these two companies. MonsterVerze does not have unlimited access to funds, which neither does Royal High, but Royal High has a toy line. They have merch. They have stuff they're selling to, you know, make more income. They have a lot of game passes for sale. You can buy diamonds in the game. They have a lot of revenues to earn and to generate income for their game. Whereas MonsterVerze, they just started generating income 2 days ago, right? And a lot of that has gone to paying people, from what I can understand, for their work for the game. So that's gone straight to paying people. And then, you know, they don't have access to constantly hire new people or hire people to fix bug issues. I believe they only have a couple or one scripter. It's not like Royal High, where they have a whole team of people who will script and people who will fix things and people who are responsible for certain aspects. It really does just fall on the owners of this game to make sure that the game works. And that's a lot of pressure, especially when you have people on Twitter who are just nagging constantly. And I can understand your criticism that there's bugs. I get that. It's annoying. It was annoying too. I was trying to live stream it and it wasn't working. But at the end of the day, that's something to be expected. I think it's really unfair to compare MonsterVerze to Royal High when there's just such an astronomical difference between the resources that they have available to them. Not to mention, Royal High is like very closely associated with Roblox. So I would, you know, speculate that they have a little bit of an upper hand when it comes to, you know, if their game was banned. If their game was banned, like one of Royal High's sub places, that would have been unbanned within minutes. I can guarantee it from Roblox, okay? Whereas MonsterVerze had to wait several days for an issue to be resolved when they hadn't even done anything wrong to begin with, right? And so, again, there's just a difference in resources that people have and connections that they have. And just because MonsterVerze doesn't have the social, you know, reputation or the connections to Roblox that Royal High does, doesn't mean that it's inherently like a bad game because of that. I think that's a really silly perspective. Now, this last one we're gonna look at reads, MonsterVerze is boring as hell. It's the same shit as Astro Renaissance, which this is really silly to me because one of the co-owners worked on Astro Renaissance. So obviously it's gonna be kind of similar. But I think, again, what people don't understand is MonsterVerze in their Q&A, and that's the funny thing too about Twitter, is people will post tweets without really doing any research, without doing any, you know, without reading anything, without asking any questions. They just think, oh, I have this idea, and they'll just post it, which, I can't demonize you for that. Everybody's done that. It's a normal human thing to do, so like, whatever, right? However, this person very clearly didn't watch the Q&A, and I'm not trying to sit here again and sound like a broken record, but in the Q&A, the developers discussed how they have lots of aspects that are ready for the game, and they know what they want, and they have things that are ready to work and stuff like that. However, the main issue with Astro Renaissance was that when the game launched, and this is me from what I can remember from what I think Vivi is how you pronounce it, or Vivi, from what they said when they were discussing on the Q&A, was that when they launched Astro Renaissance, they had too many aspects in the game, and it created a massive amount of lag, and players' data became corrupted, and it was basically not salvageable. And it created a bunch of issues for players, and it was a whole gong show. It just ultimately led to the game's downfall. Like this initial launch, there was too much content, and it was too overwhelming for Roblox, and it just was a complete mess, right? And so with MonsterVerze, learning from that experience, they said, okay, we're going to start off slow. We're going to be doing daily small updates, releasing different features into the game. And that is what I heard firsthand from their Q&A section. They're going to be having weekly updates, but in between the weekly updates, they were having daily updates where they slowly add aspects into the game to bug test, to make sure things are working. And I've seen a lot of people say, well, how do they know the cutscene wouldn't work? How do they know that wouldn't work? How do they know there wouldn't be these issues? Well, from my understanding, I guess, when the launch happened, there was an issue with the sub place, like either it got moderated or wasn't teleporting properly, and it just wouldn't teleport you to the cutscene and wouldn't show you the cutscene. And so they had to work to resolve that. And I think given the amount of time that I waited, I think it was maybe like 15, 20 minutes, it was resolved. And I understand people are upset about like the mobile thing and not being able to fight that damn fairy Daisy. And I get it. It's frustrating. I understand that. But at the end of the day, I feel like the dev team is doing their absolute best. And again, you have to consider how much resources they have available to them. It's a much different kind of situation than if they were a multi-million-dollar company. Obviously, a large game development firm, you can expect a different kind of quality content when they're releasing their first, beta version of their game. When it's a small development team, I think it's incredibly unfair to compare them to larger games and use those larger games as like the base point for how development should go, because that's just not the reality of Roblox development. And unfortunately, I think people take that narrative and they run with it. And it's a really harmful kind of rhetoric to spread, because it spreads the assumption that the devs didn't work hard on the game, when I can guarantee that's the furthest thing from the truth. But anyways, obviously, as you guys can tell from this video, there is a lot of back and forth on Twitter, and these are just a couple comments. I didn't want to dig too deep because, oh, guys, when I posted that last... video, let's just say Royal High Twitter did not like that. It's a little bit of a cesspool at the moment. And so I didn't want to, go too much down this treacherous journey and get down a rabbit hole I wouldn't be able to get out of before I have to leave this morning. But regardless, there's obviously a lot going on. I understand people are upset because they don't want their game to be replaced, but at the end of the day, MonsterVerze is not here to replace Royal High. The two games can coexist, but if players are continuously going to try to post stuff on Twitter, not with the intention of pointing out bugs, because there's some people who post content on Twitter about MonsterVerze that is negative, but it's a valid criticism saying that this doesn't work, it's really annoying, that's valid. But when you're taking a criticism and you're posting it to Twitter and then using it as an opportunity to compare it to another game, it kind of devalues what you're saying, because it just looks like you're trying to nitpick things to cause issues for MonsterVerze, which is just really silly. Both games can exist, both development teams are very talented, and MonsterVerze is working pretty diligently, from what I can see, to try and update their game effectively. I've seen some people saying that there's screenshots going around, that the dev team has said certain things, and I've looked into this, I've been looking around. If you guys can tell me any reputable sources that have posted it, let me know, because all I can find is random troll accounts reposting the screenshots. And obviously I want to look into things fully, and I'm not going to be biased in my perspectives. I want to look at things if you guys are telling me that they exist. However, from what I can see, I haven't found any reputable source that's posted these screenshots. It's a lot of just accounts that are dedicated to hating on the game, so it's hard to tell if they're real or if they've been faked or if they've been edited, etc., taken out of context. I don't know. But regardless, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Do you guys think you can enjoy both Royal High and MonsterVerze? I think that's a completely possible opportunity. Again, I don't just sit at my computer and only play one game in the entirety of the day. I always switch between games. And I think the more in this community, the more the merrier kind of a thing. I don't think they're meant to be competition. They're not meant to outshine one another. And the constant comparing really just creates a negative kind of correlation between the two games that really doesn't need to exist. The devs of both games don't need to have beef with each other. It just creates weird tensions between the Roblox developing groups. Let's just not do that. Let's be kind. Let's remember that games can coexist. A beta game, which is in beta, which means in progress, will have issues, and that's to be expected, right? So anyways, thank you guys for watching, and let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!